this gorgeous evening here at the CV Summit. We're talking to one of my favorite dogs for the simple reason that we're talking contracts, and it's always an important topic. Chad Hoyt, who is the Executive Medical Director of the Centra, Stroobants Heart and Vascular Center in Lynchburg, Virginia.
That's correct.
Now, we've talked about contracts before kind of early on, but this is Contracts 301, so we're getting to the advanced class here. What were you discussing, and then what were some of the big questions that you got asked during this meeting?
The first contract is always the easiest because the health system wants to make a good impression, and so everything's great. And then once you live through the first contract, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it gets a little tougher because once you're in the system, you may not have another health system that you can go to try to negotiate a better contract. So you're kind of married. And so you have to take an inventory of what happened in that first contract. And so we talked a lot about taking inventory. What did we say we were going to do when we signed on to the deal? What did we actually do? And then what are we going to do in the future? So it's like being a baseball player and negotiating a professional contract. You know, if you were batting .350 last year, then going into the next contract, you're going to get a good contract. So we as physicians need to tell our story. We need to frame the narrative, and we can't expect the health system to do that. So being able to say, hey, what did we do from a quality perspective? How did we do financially? What about with our regional satellite markets? Are we gaining more market share? What have we done for the health system that added value? And we have to tell that story in a detailed way and make sure we articulate it clearly and then say, hey, here's our bold agenda for the future. We can't expect it to show up and then them give us a great renewal of a contract on a silver platter. It just doesn't work that way.
So the first thing is to recognize that a renegotiation is very different from the original negotiation. And then what about in terms of, it's going to take some time to get this information together. Docs don't have a whole lot of time. How do you do that?
Right. Okay, that's a great question. And this was one of the questions that one of the physicians brought up during the session. That's something that renegotiation starts from the day you sign the contract. So what we do at Centra is we keep a document on an Excel spreadsheet of all the things that we set out to do. And each time we achieve something, we highlight it and we say, okay, great, that's one down. But you keep a document, a running document, and keep track of all the things that you've done, all your initiatives. And then at the end of every year, what I like to do as a medical director is give a State of the Union address on our Heart and Vascular Center and say, hey, here's what we said we would do, here's the progress we've made, here's where we need to go. And you look back every year, and then at the end of the contract cycle, you have 3 or 4 or 5 years worth of material, and you can put it all together and say, hey, we kept our promises, we did really well in this area, or we let you down in this area, but here's our plan to fix that. So I think you have to do it as you go, and renegotiation starts from the day you sign the first contract.
What are the risks? What are the things that you're likely to do wrong? Obviously, if you don't keep track as you go along, that would be one thing. But what else? Is there another stumbling block? Well,
you have to take some risk and make some gambles. And so, for example, should you decide to have a TAVR program, that's a large expense.
Yes. And
that could negatively impact your bottom line for the profitability of your heart center. Did we hire too many cardiologists? Did we not hire enough? Should we go into the satellite market or not? There are many decisions that you make along the way, and sometimes you'll get it right and sometimes you'll get it very wrong, and it will negatively impact the bottom line. But I think that if everybody is working together in unison for what they think is best for the system, and the communication is good and the relationships between the executive team and the medical team, if they're strong, then I think the right decisions will get made. But you set out and you do something, and some of the things that I thought would be really successful were a bomb, and some of the things that I just blew off that we did became extremely successful. So you just don't always know, but you have to take some risks.
The stuff that became more and more important than you thought, what were those? I mean, what type of topic are we talking about in terms of you had kind of underestimated its value?
I think there were some satellite markets that we went into thinking that, hey, there's X potential, and then we realized, well, there's X potential plus 85% more, and we didn't realize, hey, wow, there's a market to the south of Lynchburg that has just blown our socks off. And so we were even wondering how many resources to invest there, but it was a tremendous thing. So you just never know.
But it's always interesting.
It is always interesting, and marketing and analysis, it's not always an exact science. And you look at something and you study it, but it doesn't always turn out the way you think it will.
Any last questions from the audience that you thought were fascinating?
I thought that the most salient question, and the one that's most apropos right now to this conference, is how do we evolve from an RVU-based payment system and compensation model to a value-based system that's coming a few years down the road, because we're in that awkward transition right now.
Awkward's a good word.
And so we spent a lot of time talking about that. MedAxiom has had some good compensation ideas, models to look at. So I think we're all struggling with that, and I think that's been the focus of the meeting.
Well, we have a cover story on this particular meeting, as we have the last several, so please do check out CardioSource World News, where I'm Executive Editor Rick McGuire.